Show. I'm your host Callum, and joining me today is Kerm. Kerm, how are you going today?
Mate, I'm really good. I'm so keen to get stuck into this team, but as the audience will know, we're a man down.
We are a man down. For
Tom.
Tom has had enough. For anyone that was watching our last show, the Pies review, Tom dropped off halfway through, and he reckoned that we were doing a good enough job by ourselves. He didn't feel like he needed to come back, so he's going to have a few episodes off, which for you guys will be probably a few weeks. For us, it's probably going to be a few hours. But Tom will be back nonetheless in a bit. But great little plug there opportunity to, if you haven't gone back and seen our past reviews. So far, we reviewed all the teams alphabetically up to the Bombers. And that is our team we are doing today. So, yeah, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe. It does really help us as we prepare for the launch of Gameday Squad, Australia's first and only fantasy sport platform run completely on the blockchain. So, yeah, Kerm, how are you feeling about this one today? A bit of an interesting team, the Bombers. How did you find preparing for it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the analysis for this. We've had some stinker teams in the last couple of weeks, so it's good to get stuck into a team that's got some good fantasy talent that we can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got an interesting mix. Some really good young players, some players at the top potentially underperforming. So yeah, I'm disappointed Tom's not going to be here to talk through his choices. But yeah, if this is the first time you've come across us, how we would do these season review shows is we start off by looking at the season in review. So 2021. Geez, I'm losing track of years. That's section one. Next part is we talk about season 2022 as we plan for the season ahead. And then also, unique to Game Day Squad is the dynasty aspects of our game. Meaning that the game is not just 1 year. If you own these player cards, you own them forever. So we finally have a look at those players for those players inside the Essendon squad you want to be building out your fantasy squad with for years to come. So I'm super excited, Kerm. I reckon we should get straight into it.
Let's get stuck in.
Alrighty, Kerm, before we get into the players for the 2021 season in Essendon and their fantasy review, we're going to have a look at how the team went overall. And for those who don't remember, the Bombers overcame a pretty poor start to reach their third elimination final in 50 years. They were really part of that massive scrap going on the middle to the end of the year, really fighting out for those last couple of spots. And yeah, they had some massive wins late in the year to finally pinch that 8th spot. But unfortunately, as you see there, they did go down to the Dogs. So 11 wins, 11 losses, put them 8th overall. But I think looking back on it, if you'd asked the Dons fan at the start of the year or at any point through the year, hey, you get a finals berth, would you take it? I think they would have bitten your hand off for it.
100%.
Yeah, it was really, we'll get into how we graded them a bit later on. But yeah, for me, it was a great year. But unfortunately, as you can see there, they did extend their streak since 2004 of no finals win, which just absolutely still blows me away. It's over 6,200 days since they've won a final, and I don't know about you, I've got lots of mates who are Essendon fans, so it's, on one hand I love digging into them, but on the other hand, I do really feel sorry for them.
Yeah, at some point you do start to feel sorry for these fan bases. It's we'll get into it later, but it's coming. For sure.
Yeah, and we just did the Blues a couple of shows ago, and talking about a team like that who've gone my whole lifetime without seeing any premiership success, and then you look at Essendon who haven't won a final in 16 years, 16 years, and it's just hard to the size of those clubs does blow me away with those stats, but I do have a soft spot for them. I've been able to go down and tour their facilities and stuff, so I always, hope that they go well. But unfortunately, another season where they'll look back and went, our finals missed. But for me, looking at the highlights, I think beating the Dogs in round 21, that was obviously when probably the height of having to make that finals, and they touched them up by a couple of goals and really gave them a lot of confidence, I think, going into the elimination final, which they secured. But ultimately, the down point, I think, I had two different ones. I'll let you choose which you think was more of a down point. Round 2, they got absolutely battered by my power. And the reason I had it as a low point is they had 4 injuries that day. They lost Shield, I think, the start of it. And it just started that run of they couldn't get their best 22 on the field the whole game.
Yeah.
But the other low light, which I think will take the cake, is Cody Waitman in the elimination final, getting, I think, every free kick awarded that day.
It was just carnage on footy Twitter the next day, just attacking the umpires. It was I used to umpire footy, so it was quite funny to read actually. But yeah, Cody Waitman had a day that night, and Bombers fans will quickly erase that from their memory, 100%.
Yeah. Sorry to rub it in your face. I had to include him on the slide there for you Dons fans, because I know how much you love seeing his face. There was another good one of him getting a supposed high tackle as well, but I kept that one aside.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah. But let's go and let's actually start talking about some of the players now. So for those who don't know, we're going to kick this off by talking about the start of the year. Who did you have, Kerm?
I thought Darcy Parish had a great year. And as silly as it's going to sound, I mean, Darcy Parish is a prime example of what happens when you put a midfielder in the midfield. I mean, in 2021, Parish ranked 4th in inside 50s, 1st in centre bounce clearances, and 10th in goal assists. He had career highs in every stat category and established himself as a premier player in the league. The bloke is just a genuine jet, and we saw it on Brownlow night. He got a few votes, so yeah.
Yeah, he did. Now, while Tom isn't joining us today, he has sent in his pick, so you can see there he's doubled down on your pick of Darcy Parish.
I like
and
it.
Yeah, I've got to say that it's a great pick. I just think about that purple patch he had in the middle of the year.
Unreal.
It's just absolutely on fire. So yeah, you just wonder if he can get that consistency of that level. Like that takes him to the next level. Wouldn't be surprised if he's back on this list for you next year. But I've gone. I was actually amazed you guys both didn't go this guy. But for me, easily the star of the year was Zach Merritt.
Yeah, he's so good.
We're both massive EPL fans, and I always think about James Milner, Mr. Reliable, and Zachy Merritt's kind of that for me. This guy has scored over 100 points in Game Day Squad consistently since 2015. And this year, 128 points, number 1 at the club, 9th rank overall, and 8th midfield. Yeah, absolutely. This is if you'd have said, hey, how did Zachy Merritt's season go at the start of the year? This is the sort of season that I would have picked. Just the way he's just done it for years and years. And actually, since 2010, I'll get this, he owns the record, the 2nd highest and the 4th highest overall scores for the Bombers since 2010.
Yeah,
and the only other person to break in that streak, the only other person to get in that streak was Jobe Watson in that 2012 year, the one that, can I say supposedly won the Brownlow? Or former Brownlow
touchy subject.
I was thinking about this. Do I introduce Jobe Watson as the former Brownlow medalist, or do I have to say the former disgraced Brownlow medalist? Yeah, touchy subject.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, played every game. 3 games over 150 Game Day Squad points, and only 3 games under 100. Claimed his 3rd BNF for the club, 6 years, and it's no surprise with how consistent he is that he got his Anzac Day medal as well, and an All-Australian jumper. So yeah, you guys can have Parish. I will take Zachy Merritt.
All day. The guy is a magnet. He's such a magnet.
I don't think it'll be the last we hear of him in this show either. Let's go on the other side. Who did you have as your flop of the year?
Far out, Devon Smith. Statistically, this was his worst season ever. Like, seriously, that even includes the COVID season where every game was shortened by 20 minutes. It was just... It's crazy. I saw his stats and I thought, oh my God, this is disgusting. I'm not sure where you can put it down to outside of some minor injury trouble and perhaps the emergence of, Darcy Parish, as we mentioned before. But this was an all-time drop-off. And as much as I'd like to turn a blind eye to last season, I'm not entirely sure it's that easy. And next season is going to be a massive turnaround season for him. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, you'd really hope so. And yeah, I'm going to double down. As you can see there, he is my pick as well. And I think you've hit the nail perfectly on your head, on his head there. We always talk about those sort of players that can rack up touches, which he can. He's shown it in the midfield in the past that he can do that. And that ranking for forward, the ceiling's not that high. We've said it in the past. Green was the highest forward scorer in fantasy this year for us. So yeah, he doesn't need to be putting out 35 touches a game, but yeah, massive drop off. I had to look back. I had a bit of fun with this. With Tom not here, I thought it'd be easy to have a bit of fun, keep him jealous for not wanting to jump on here. So the Giants gave away pick 11 in the draft for him when they brought him across. And the players they missed out on, I'll give you a few, and I want you to tell me who they'd missed, who they'd wish they'd have more. Tim Kelly, Zach Bailey, and Bailey Fritsch all were available with that number 11th pick they gave away for him.
God, that's hard to hear.
Yeah.
God. I'd take all of them over him, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's unreal. It's always harsh looking
Yeah.
back at those. Hey, it's such a kick in the gut sometimes if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, hindsight, of course. It's always difficult. But yeah,
That's
either way,
interesting,
salt in the wounds for a tough season. Tom, like I said, also gave us his pick, and you can see there that he's actually gone Dylan Shields. I'm really glad he went that because I was pretty close to picking him as well, purely again because of the injuries. So, like I said, that Port game did his knee, and we just didn't see the best of him from there. But I do really like him as a talent. But if you'd had gone out at the start of the season and you'd bought the Dylan Shield card, you'd be really disappointed with not only the amount of games he had, but what he was able to produce when he got on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he only played 6 or 8 games, so that's
Yeah.
not ideal when you're spending the sort of capital you would have to if you're trying to get Dylan Shield in your team, because he's been a fantasy jet in the past. We'll talk about later on whether he's going to be in the future as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, I have given you a quick preview of my big zag I've got later for him, so stay tuned for that. As we do, we're always going to finish it off with a grade on how we thought the team prepared, how the team went for the year, and I've given them a B. I thought, like I said, if you'd offered them at the start of the year, they would have taken it. The amount of injuries they had, I think they did overachieve, and I think looking back at my notes, they were one of the sort of lower ranked. They were sort of looked around sort of 13th or 14th for the odds. So for them to sneak into the 8 was a massive achievement. It does sting losing the elimination final like they did, but of course that I don't see that Dogs team as a genuine 5th place team. I think that Dogs team, they did drop off. So they were tough to get them, but yeah, I think B's fair. What did you have them down for?
I gave them the B+, and for a lot of the same reasons. And we spoke earlier about their youth. And going into the season, Essendon ranked 3rd last in average games played for each team's respective active list. And given the fact that their core 22 is so young, Bombers fans should be stoked, over the moon with making the 8. Because now they can move on to bigger and better things next season.
Yeah, stay tuned for that segment. And finally, Tom sent in his pick. He gave him a B-. So what that does mean is we've got the Essendon Bombers sitting there next to the Lions with the highest ranking so far for a B. So we haven't given anyone an A yet. I'm sure we will be giving out a few of them. But yeah, good year for the Bombers, and I'm sure their fans will at least be happy with some of the things that came from it. So yeah, on to 2022. See the Bombers fly up to win. Okay, Ken, we're going to have a look at how we think the Bombers are going to go in the 2022 season. But before we do that, we're going to have a look at how we think their team is going to go overall, because we know how important team success is to fantasy scores. So what I've got there, and apologies in advance to all our lovely Spotify and now Apple Podcast listeners who aren't able to see this graphic. This is probably going to be the hardest one to explain over here, so I recommend jumping on YouTube just to see what I'm trying to talk and illustrate here.
This is a dog's breakfast.
It is, and the reason that is for those who haven't seen this before, this graphic's kind of where we think the team is progressing over time. And normally you see a team like the Lions moving up the curve, or a team, we've already had teams coming up the curve, or a team like Adelaide sort of, had their grand final moving down and now they're slowly working their way back up. But Essendon have just been all over the place, and I just haven't been able to have a read of where this team actually sits. Like, where is this team's premiership window? And I've done that by showing you where I think they're going to sit in 2022. And for me, I have them sort of not progressing back up the curve. I think they overachieved this year, so I think they will sort of drop back down. And like you can see there, I still think a 13th or thereabouts finish, or 12th, is kind of on par where I'd expect them to be. Mm-hmm. But I do want to see an improvement from the young players. I think they can take that step up. But I'd look at their top end players and I go, are there players here that I think are going to be in the next premiership side? And there's a few that I would be getting rid of and trying to reinvest back into the team. Now, we don't see that too much in AFL. If this was the NBA or if this is the NFL, we'd absolutely would see them sort of trading off those players for people looking to win a premiership and getting back some draft pick and talent. But yeah, that's kind of where I have them. How do you think I've gone with that? And those predictions you can see there at the bottom.
Yeah, now that you've explained it, it makes a lot of sense because their core is so young. And the older players, as you mentioned, the likes of Jake Stringer, Michael Hurley, they're getting on now that you can no longer trust them and depend on them like you used to. So I like that. I can see a bit of a plateau this coming season. But for me, I still see them going up, later into their window where you see the players like Parrish and McGrath and Nick Cox, Archie Perkins, the likes, really establishing themselves and getting some games under their belt. I like the ceiling a lot. Elimination final win is where you have the ceiling. I like that. Their floor might be a little harsh. I maybe have them around the 11, probably 12. But yeah, I like it overall. Prediction of 9th, that's about where I had them. So yeah, this is good. It's really good.
Yeah, so sorry, I was saying around 11 or 12. But yeah, prediction, I have them just missing the 8 there at 9th. But the thing with that floor is it's such a competitive finals at the moment. Like,
it is, yeah.
There's a lot of teams we haven't gone through. Like, do Richmond bounce back? Do St Kilda finally blow it up? Are the Giants still in the premiership window? There's all these teams that they're thereabouts, you know.
The middle pack is so confusing. 100%. I 100% agree.
Yeah. So, yeah, it'll really be an interesting one, but this has been one of my more enjoyable sort of deep dives so far, which has been good because, like, again, I'll rip on the Crows as much as I can, but there's not a lot happening over there outside of you guys getting Jordan Dawson. So I do enjoy having a look at a team with a bit of talent.
Oh, yeah.
So, getting into that, let's talk about our 2022 team. So how we break this down is who have you got in your best 22 lined up for round 1 next year? Who have you got knocking on your door for your team? And then who are players you're completely avoiding putting a red line through?
Yeah, so in my best 22, I've got 2 selections this time. Parrish has to have nailed his spot in the guts for the Bombers after the season he had last year for me. They're going to have Shield back healthy next season, and I refuse to believe that Deb Smith plays as bad as he did last year. But I don't think these factors affect Parrish as much. He's one of the best ball winners and users in the league, especially at centre bounces, so I'm going to be locking him into my best 22 for sure. And I'm also going to add Jordan Ridley into my backline. Ridley's rapid ascension into fantasy relevancy happened somewhat under the radar, but for me, he's got the potential to be a top 6 defensive fantasy scorer as early as next year. So I'm not going to sit around and find out. I'll be sticking him in there. Knocking on the door of my squad is going to be Dyson Heppel. I know he's 29, but he's really enjoyed spending his time down back as of late. He's averaged 7 marks a game last season, and he had 25 disposals a game to go with it. And if he's a defender going forward, he'll make a strong push for my best 22. And the player to avoid, I ultimately decided to pick Michael Hurley, and this one's purely due to age and recent injury history, but honestly though, and I don't know about you, mate, but I really struggled to rule anyone out for this spot.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. It is a tough team where you look at some of their players, like I said before, they've got a lot of older aged players, but they're still players that are quite useful. I just don't know if they're going to be in the next premiership team. So I think, they could get a second life in different teams. So when I look at it like that, I did struggle to rule out a few players. And yeah, the only ones I could rule out, so obviously I went Hurley as well. Obviously missed the year with that hip infection. You just don't know. Too much of a risk. Wait to see what happens, and then, regret him coming back in, but don't bring him in and regret that. And the one I've got avoiding is Zacharakis, who has now been let go by Essendon. There is a chance that another team will pick him up, but while someone else might pick him up, I don't think anyone listening to this should pick him up.
No.
I think his best days are over, and, from a fantasy point of view, I know as a player, you always wanted to not be just remembered for that Anzac Day goal, but that's all I remember him for, unfortunately.
I was going to say, you can play him for 1 game a year, and it's the Anzac Day game. So,
yeah. I was going to say, surely you don't hate that. Like, that's the thing you're going for. But I'm sure. My best 22, though, versus back, I've got Snelling. Now, this guy was a mature age recruit. Great story. Missed out on all the drafts. Had to come through the mid-season draft in 2019. And found himself this year as a GameDay Squad first team all forwards team, which means he was in the best 6 players of all forwards in terms of high score. So he averaged 87 points, which, just for reference, Isaac Heaney averaged 91 and he was in 3rd place. But how he did it through 5 tackles a game, 18 disposals, and I see massive room for improvement because he only kicked 9 goals for the year. So if he can stay as a forward, I can just see him, really knocking on the door and pushing Toby Green for the best highest scoring forward in the comp. I've also got Zachy Merritt there. I told you, Mr. Reliable, James Milner. So, yeah, he might not be in the top 6 defenders by the end of the year, but I can guarantee if he stays healthy, he'll definitely be in the top 10. Knocking on the door, you can see I've got a few players. Parrish for the same reasons you said there before. I just think the midfield is so hotly contested, and we've only got 5 spots for midfielders. I just don't think he cracks into one of those 5. Heppel, similar sort of reason to Zachy Merritt. So consistent. I just know that he's going to be a player that I'd feel really comfortable about bringing into my team if someone's injured or there's a bye week or something like that. You just know he's going to do the job. And I've got Shield there as well. Sorry, Shield. I told you I was going to zag a bit, and I've got him there on the hope that he gets moved to a forward player. Because with his injuries, yeah, it is. Because if they decide, hey, listen, with the injuries and the engine room they got, keep that young core together of the ones you were saying, McGrath, Parrish, keep those young guys in the midfield, let them develop over a few years and say, hey, Shield, go forward and see what you can do. I think he could be a really, really good forward player.
I like that.
Heaps of touches and be quite dangerous. So I'm going to put him in there on the hope that he gets changed over to a forward.
And that was the reason why I sort of left Snelling out of my knocking on the door of best 22s, because we don't know whether we're going to see Shield push forward. We don't know if Devon Smith's going to be spending a lot of forward time going forward. So that whole engine room, it really should be Merritt, Parrish, McGrath starting, with some guys going through like Nick Cox on the wing, who's been proven to push up and really do a good job. So there's a lot of questions, but we do know that engine room is going to be pretty solid. So
yeah.
One to watch going
I definitely
forward.
Agree. For sure. It will be a good team to watch and a lot of excitement around Essendon. So I do think that first finals win in a while isn't too far away. Fingers crossed for those Dons fans out there.
Yes.
I'm going to show you Tom's ones here, so I don't think there's any point going through Merritt and McGrath. I think they're sort of reasonable. But I would love to know why he has Heppel in the avoiding list.
Yeah,
because we both have him in there.
We need to chase that up and maybe get a small YouTube clip out for that, because Heppel was really good down back last year.
Yeah, so he must have some reasons. I was trying to think, is there a connection between Sydney and Heppel why he'd hate him? But I'm gonna go, because we're obviously new to YouTube. I want to know in the comments section, why do you think Tom has left Heppel out? I want to hear the best reason. You can completely make it up if you want, but I want to see the reasons, because I can't think of one myself. So
get creative.
Get creative. I want to see what he's done there.
See the Bombers fly up to win the premiership flag.
Guys, we are back, and before we get into talking about the future potential of the Essendon Football Club, I wanted to have a chat about Game Day Squad. So Game Day Squad is obviously the reason we are here, and it's the game we are talking about. Game Day Squad is Australia's first and only fantasy sport blockchain game, launching with an AFL and NRL game for the start of the 2022 season. What makes Game Day Squad so different to your typical AFL fantasy or your super coach is that all the players are actually cards, trading cards digital or online, and it's all done on the blockchain. So you guessed it, these cards are NFTs. You don't need to know anything about blockchain, don't need to know anything about crypto. Just imagine it as if you were trading cards online. And what I love about this is, like we said before, these cards that you own from season to season. So if I was to go out and I was going to get Ash McGrath at the start of his career, I would have his card forever. And I wouldn't lose him until he retired, or I was able to sell him or trade him for something else. So it does mean we've got a fully integrated transfer market, which means you can buy and sell other players, whether you're trying to buy players to win the premiership today, or whether you're trying to find some bargains to maybe not win the premiership this year, but potentially get some undervalued players that you think in the future have a lot of upside, or potentially you could sell for a little bit of money. So Kerm, I'm going to throw it to you. Who do you think would be the most undervalued card if the transfer market was live today from the Essendon Football Club?
Oh, I like this question. This is juicy. There's a couple that can fly under the radar, and for me, and I'll be chasing him, you'll hear about him later on in the podcast, it's actually Nick Cox. He only averaged 59 GDS average last year, but it was his first season, and he can play literally everywhere. He's a bit of they call him the unicorn for a reason. It's because he can play everywhere. He pinch hits in the ruck, see him working up the field on the wing, can play forward, and even goes down back late in games. So yeah, sneaky little one that can sneak under the radar. It's Nick Cox.
Yeah, there you go. And that's what Game Day Squad's for. It's for those fantasy fans like yourself. If you're listening to this, it means you are into fantasy sports and you do love taking those long view and you do like picking players like Nick Cox. So yeah, can't wait for that to launch. And if you think there's someone else that you think there's going to be upside potential, let us know, because we would love to also make some money off this as well. But now we're going to give you our picks. We're going to talk about who we think are going to be the stars of the Essendon Football Club for the future, whether we're talking 3 years, 5 years, or even longer than that. Kerm, who have you got as your number one star from Essendon going forward?
I think Andy McGrath has the minerals to become a premier fantasy scorer in the future. I mean, he tackles, he's a ball winner, he can impact the scoreboard, and he attracts free kicks. And we know by now that those are all criterias for a recipe, and that recipe is a great fantasy average. So he just needs to stay healthy. That's the only thing for me. If he stays healthy and gets some consistency going, he's already played 93 games. He can go on to be a 300-plus gamer for Essendon here.
Yeah, I love that pick, and no surprises, I've got him down as well. And I've only got a few more things to add. You said there, he's only 23. He's been in the league for 5 years. It doesn't seem like that. Like, I know. I don't know whether it seems like he's only just arrived or he's actually been in there longer. I couldn't make up my mind, but for whatever reason, I wouldn't have picked 5 years. But nevertheless, he's there. I'm a huge fan of him, and it's not really the strongest draft class. I was going back and looking, so yeah, I would love to sort of see if we did a redraft of that draft, if he would still go number one. But nevertheless, I'm looking at the guys that went in the draft above him. I'll give you some names: Callum Mills, Clayton Oliver, Harry Maguire. And what I think they all shared was they had a massive breakout in year 6. And that's exactly what I want from this guy. Every year, he's got better and better and better. If you look at his averages, don't have them here, but they were incrementally about 10 points higher, 10 points higher, 10 points higher. I want to see him take that next jump. I want to see him go from 95 to 120 and really dominate that midfield and become one of the big names in the AFL. So, yeah, he is my star pick for the future.
I 100% see it, because he comes from that Christian Petrarca mould of how he plays. And, that classic ball that just wins the ball, wins free kicks, inside 50s, can impact the scoreboard. So we can see it as early as next year, as you said.
Yeah, the only thing I would disagree with that is that scoreboard. So I know he has scored some really good goals, but not in the quantity that he probably needs to be in that mould. And we know how important goals are for game day squad scoring. They give you 8 points. So I reckon if he is to go to sort of that 130 to the level of your Petrarca or Bond, I do think he needs to be getting a few more goals. But again, he's only 23, which is amazing. So he's got a lot of time to come. The only other one, we got Tom there. So he's gone Darcy Parish as his star going forward, which again, still a respectable pick. We obviously spoke about him before. Do you have anything to add on him picking Darcy Parish as the star from the club going forward?
No, just a great pick. It's a pretty vanilla pick, but it's a great pick. He's got all the attributes to be one of the best midfielders in the league. So, yeah, great pick, Tom. Yeah,
good pick. I still can't get over him not picking Heppel. I can't. So, yeah, I'm not going to give you anything else until I get answers for that. We're going to roll into a few of some really high upside potential players. So, obviously, with Maguire and Parish, they're kind of your surefire things. We know they're going to be stars. We're now looking for players who have a lot of upside, whether it be short-term or really long-term upside, that if you did, for example, like you said, could go out and buy their card, you'd be able to flip for a higher price or potentially, see that, return affect your team's score. So who have you got as some upside potential players in this footy club?
I've gone with Nick Cox here.
That's where he comes in, yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, I was like, this is where he comes in. I didn't know where you're going to throw him in later after your spiel.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah. I was wigging out because I was trying to find it on the thing. Hang on. So
still getting used to this camera thing. If I mumble, people will still be able to hear me. So apologies for that. Why is Nick Cox in your upside potential player team?
I'll take a flyer on Nick Cox here. He can literally play everywhere on the field, and he can develop into being a pinch-hitting ruckman who can play forward, work up the field, play down back. He'll be a very good fantasy option in the future, so I'm going to pick him up early and hope to see where he goes.
Yep. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I've got him there, as you can see, on my board as well. The reason I've got him, similar sort of thing, he's got what you can't train. He's 2 meters tall, and he's winning the club's 2-kilometer time trial.
Yeah.
I reckon absolutely. If he just finds his position or he builds out a little bit, I think the upside on him is massive. The other one I've got there is a bit of a different one. I've gone Draper in the ruck.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. I don't know whether I like him yet as a footy player, but in terms of his fantasy output, I think there could be a player here. I've seen him. He's got something different. The club obviously love him. And talk about a story. I know I was saying there before, I forget who, I was saying the crazy story, the mid-season draft after missing on the draft. This guy got drafted by the club in the rookie draft after only playing footy. Was it 6 months or 9 months? Yeah, 9 months.
Yeah.
He played footy for before he got picked up. So think about that. He wasn't playing footy that long ago. He's still only 23. He's the club's number 1 ruckman before he got injured. I just be like, imagine, and he's got he moves like a Grundy. Like I could just see that, and I'm like, he's got such a long runway to get to his absolute best. But yeah, huge upside in this guy. And yeah, what about Tom's pick there? He's gone with Cadwell, which is an interesting pick. So he's only played 14 games across the last 3 seasons. Was another former number 11 pick from the Giants. Came home this year and only played 2 games after all his hamstring issues. I don't know too much about him because he hasn't played. Do you know any reasons why Tom might be high on him?
No, I just know he uses the ball so well. He's got a lot of work to break through into this midfield if he's going to be playing there. I could see him maybe going and becoming like a small back pocket type player who can kick out and, impact fantasy through his kicking and just, I guess, volume of possessions. But he's got a lot of work to do before he breaks into the midfield. Tom will be holding on to him for a long time.
Yeah. Might have to do my homework on him there because I haven't heard much, but if he's going to be a star, I want to know about him. And finally, what we're going to look at here is you've got my 3 to 5 year dynasty pyramid. Now, every week I add a new team to this as we go through them, and every week you guys tell me how perfectly I've positioned them. And I'm sure that's going to be the same with the Bombers. I've got them in tier 3 here. So how we break up the tiers is tier 1, they'll compete for multiple premierships. Tier 2, they'll compete for 1 premiership. Tier 3, top 4 contenders, and Tier 4 is top 4 finishers. And those metrics are where we see in the next 3 to 5 years. So I don't see this team competing for a premiership in the next 3 to 5 years. I got them high. You can see they're sort of kind of the top of Tier 3, but not quite pushing into that Tier 2 team. I still just don't know where this team is at with the trade window, with their premiership window, I should say. Like, they've got the pieces there. They could have a couple of moves, and I could easily put them up there with Carlton in Tier 2. But yeah, as it stands right now, I'm just not convinced enough to be putting them up. But I definitely think they have a lot more potential than no top 4 finishes. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough. And I hear what you're saying, I really do. But I would have them in Tier 2 with Carlton for me. I just like their young core so much. And I know they've still got Stringer. I know they've still got Devon Smith. But you just can't ignore it now. And it won't be the 3-year sort of window that we're looking at here. It's back end of the 5 years. But I would put them in the Tier 2 with Carlton because I do think they can push for that in that 4, 5, maybe beyond sort of dynasty potential area.
Yeah. I do want to see them win a final before I start putting them up
that's
there.
That's a fair point too. They are in a drought.
And I do think a win's coming. Excuse me. I do think a win's coming, but yeah, and how long? And then how long will the next be drought after that? I guess no one knows. I want to quickly, before we go, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I haven't given you any warning for this.
Ooh.
But I did mention before, yeah, I know, exciting. Tom, you could be having this as well if you were here, but so be it. I spoke before about how the AFL don't have the same sort of, let's trade a player now when we're not in our window and sort of regroup with all the Stringer and all those sort of players we mentioned. If you were in charge of at the Essendon Football Club and it was a little bit more like the NBA or the NFL, would you be looking to trade those players and get back some draft picks, or do you think that they're the type of players that you need around the club to push this team forward up to that premiership contention we've just spoken about?
Great question. I would definitely try and trade the likes of Jake Stringer, and I would even throw Dylan Shield in there because we haven't seen him go forward. I'm sure he can be great up there, but there's so many if, buts, or maybes around the players that have the big names and the big sort of following behind them. So I genuinely would, because when the American teams do this, it's to sort of match up the ages of their young core going through so that they have a dynasty. I mean, you're an OKC Thunder fan and no one's got more first round picks than them going around. So they're trying to match up the ages so that they have the potential to go through a dynasty period later on down the track. I definitely would, because their young core is so good. We've spoken about it the whole way through this podcast. And those players that we spoke about, the aging ones, they are expendable for me.
Yeah. I agree. I would be moving off a couple of them, getting back a couple of sort of younger players and things, just to really shore that up and be like, this is our premiership window.
Yeah.
But again, we're on the outside looking in, so maybe they've got a sort of a window that they're targeting. But yeah, from the outside for me, I just don't know where it is. But yeah, would love to see a lot more of that. Would love to see, because I imagine Jakey Stringer on a finals team, throw him in. I was just thinking through my head, like, where would you put him? I was going through all the top teams, and yeah, I think a player like him, or like you said, Shield, anyone would take Shield. You can come to Port Adelaide any day you want, mate. I think he'd be a great addition to any team going for a premiership. So, yeah, all right. Well, we've done it, Kerm. We've got through, just you and me. I think hopefully
it's been
we've
nice,
done
man.
all right. Yeah, if you have appreciated what we've done, of course, please give us a like, give us a subscribe. We really are trying to push for our first 1,000 subscribers. And I think we've only hit 12 or 13 so far, so it's a long way to go. But yeah, with your help, we will get there and help grow Game Day Squad. So if you haven't already, go check out our website as well, GameDaySquad.com.au. Or if you want where all our best information is coming from about our game and all the different features, best place for that is currently our Instagram. So go check us out, Game Day Squad. But yeah, until next time, Kerm, thanks for all your help today. And I think next up we've got the Freo Dockers, which will be an interesting team. So,
Absolutely.
All right, guys, get yourself game day ready, and until next time, we'll see you then.